come inside before the monkeys spot you. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And give me a clock tick. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Wicked for Good.
Ah, you got the Boston accent there.
Yeah, you got a Wicked. I remember I thought it'd be Wicked Pissa, but it's not Wicked Pissa. Apparently, it's Wicked for Good.
I don't think the kids were into that. But
I mean, you never know.
Yeah, no, actually, to be fair, the kids would be into that. It's just the parents wouldn't be into the kids walking around saying, "What a wicked pissa that is."
What a wicked fucking piss of film.
Yeah.
That's how we describe movies here. How you doing, Shahir?
I'm good. You've just come back from a board game conference. Is that not correct?
I did. PAX Unplugged went very well. Got to do a bunch of stuff. We filled the Mothman Theater with about 350 folks playing a game of Pendragon with friend of the show, Jasmine Bular. And a few other folks, Ify Wadaway and Mayana, who is a voice actress who is on the game Dispatch.
Okay.
And she was lovely. I'd like to get her on the podcast at some time as well. She was just an absolute delight.
I'm Googling Pendragon as we speak.
Pendragon is essentially like what if D&D, but it's all King Arthur based, and it's kind of like you have stats like valor and chastity and like all this other stuff.
Chastity?
Yeah.
Is it Lancelot was the lover? He's not got a lot of chastity.
You have to be chaste and it's actually, the system is real. I won't bore people with it here, but it was really, really fun. And the concept was essentially, it was called 1 hour, one shot. And it was, how do you get your friends to play a new game that normally has a long learning curve or setup time? Mm-hmm. And so it was Jasmine and all of us giving tips while we played, and we had a little hourglass, and we got a actual play, actual one shot that the crowd seemed to really enjoy, done in under an hour, while teaching sort of the tricks of how we were doing it.
Did you take any tips from me trying to teach our friends how to play Agricola?
I did not, in fact.
Really?
That was maybe I used it as an antithesis.
How not to do this?
Yeah. I think it was good, but no, it was great. Good show, good turnout, lots of fun games. I'd never been to this one before, and I hadn't been to Philly in like 10 years, so it was really nice. Jamie got to come.
I wonder if any of our listeners are in Philly who could take next time Matt goes there to take him up the rocky stairs or something like that. I've driven through Philly, and I've done the drive, and I've played the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
As you come in and you see the stadium and everything.
I did get to see Sophia, friend of the show, Sophia from Movie Struck. Yep. She was the one who I was originally going to go see Wicked for Good with. Mm-hmm. Instead, I went with some of her team members. She had to stay back and man her booth. So Red from Overly Sarcastic and a few other people got to go. And we got to go see it in essentially I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been called the Film Forum or something. It's an old but nice Philadelphia movie theater by the water.
Okay.
And it was very hard to find. Philly is an old city, obviously. Yeah. So it was like what if Boston, but more confusing because I don't have institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
And no sign, like the marquee for the movie theater was hanging above the entrance to a drive-in parking garage, but there was no entrance to the movie theater in the parking garage. And so we kept trying to find the entrance, but once we were inside, it just felt like what if super old, large theater, but also kept up very nicely, but it's definitely like 80s decor.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and cool. So it was a fun experience to go to that. The seats were like, the old school cushiony seats, like with the sort of velveteen on them or whatever that is. Yeah. But also you could tell the springs had just given up 10 years ago. So you sat in it, you're just like,
I'm a real nervous Nelly about those velvety seats because I feel like they've absorbed the sweat, odor, dust of like the last 50 years of people.
They have.
And it's just like, and so you sit on them and I'm just like,
But there was something really nice about going to that theater to see this movie, I think, because obviously this is a new movie in 2025, but its pedigree is The Wizard of Oz, which is a much older film. And so it felt, I feel like it did help the experience, make it feel a little more special than just going to see it at my classic, Lincoln and IMAX or whatever.
Nice. Well, we will get to Wicked shortly. If you haven't listened, we did an episode on the first Wicked, the first John Chu movie almost at exactly this time last year. You can go back and listen to that. We had
with Spider-Man's boss,
Nicholas Lowe, who I actually just caught this morning, and I caught him this morning on the way to school. Our kids.
Did you let him go?
I did. Well, barely. Yeah. I whipped him up and left him there. And he was like, Spider-Man, Jonah Jameson on me. But I saw him this morning, and I said we had seen Wicked for Good last night. My wife and I went, and she was with me, and she kind of just gave this like, like shaking head, like not for me kind of look. And Nick did mention, he mentioned this on last year's podcast as well, that typically the second act of Wicked is considered to be the far inferior act.
Well, it's a good thing they made this above 2 hours.
Yeah, barely. Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's a good thing they made it under 3. Which is what the other one crept up to last time.
Yeah.
At any rate, we will get to that. We will get to Wicked for Good very shortly. I just wanted to come up with a conversation starter that we got over on YouTube. Again, everyone can go to our YouTube channel. We are releasing older episodes there once every day.
Yeah, I'm back on. I've built that out till the end of the year.
And then plus a new episode every week. So there, you basically can just check in with YouTube every day, and there's some new content there for you.
New old content.
It might be new for some of you.
But I think it's actually it's been fun for me to release them in chronological order of one a day, because I forget what we've done.
Yeah.
And so every day I go and I check the metrics and things. And I think Terminator 2 just dropped yesterday.
Oh, wow. That's
which
good.
is so funny. I don't know. So like if you just maybe caught on to us in the last year or so, it's a really interesting way to like kind of be check in and see if something, tickles your fancy over there.
I was talking to a friend who's also a listener yesterday, who mentioned that they just picked up, they were showing some Blu-rays that they just picked up in a sale, and they'd picked up Hell or High Water, and they were like, did you guys do an episode of Hell or High Water? And I was like, yeah, I think we did.
We did.
And they found it was 10 years ago.
That would be probably up on the YouTube.
Yeah. And I was just like, they did mention it was like nice that the quality had not changed in 10 years. I was like, yeah, we were bad then, we're bad now.
No, listen, hey, I can't speak for the content, but the audio quality, I am very proud of.
No, that was very nice. And it's actually made me go, you know what? I'd like to revisit Hell or High Water and listen to the podcast and see what we said about it. At any rate, Hixel Space wrote us in on YouTube with a comment under our Sentimental Value episode saying, my Sentimental Value audience was also the kind in which you could hear a pin drop. Super refreshing after the bad audience etiquettes of for a rewatching of Wicked Part 1. Cell phone usage, and after seeing The Running Man, a couple loudly whispering in the whole time. Could definitely use your help with advice on confrontation in theaters. I alternate between trying to ignore, accept what we can, and then spending way too long thinking about saying something, and then doing it, having mixed results and being ignored. I suggested this would be a great topic for us to kind of touch, because I remember before we started the podcast, you and I don't know if you remember this, we went and saw Pacific Rim together. Do you remember seeing Pacific?
I remember seeing a Pacific Rim together, but I don't remember the story you're going to tell.
Well, it was a fully crowded theater, Friday night, Times Square, worst theater on the planet. No, I mean, not the worst theater, but just the worst place on the planet.
Yeah.
And people, there was, I think, a group of teenagers in the row behind us, like loudly talking throughout the entire movie, not about the movie, but at each other. And I would like look over and give them the death stare every once in a while, but you actually took the initiative and said something to them. Do you remember this?
No.
You don't remember this?
I don't remember this. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so this is how
what did I say?
This is what I remember. You leaned over with a stern but polite tone. I will say that that's better than what I do most of the time. Mm-hmm. Stern but polite, and said, "Could you please be quiet? We're trying to watch the movie."
Yeah. And
they turned around, and I remember this. There was an interaction, because I found this interaction so fascinating, and it's burned into my memory. They turned back and they were like, "It's not like there's anything important happening in this movie," and you were like, "But we paid to see the movie, not you." And I was like, "Oh, this is an interesting interaction," because I was like, because I also didn't love the movie, and I was like, "This is an interesting interaction that's happening." I agree with you, 100%.
Yeah.
But it was just like their disregard for what was happening in front of them.
Did it work?
That part I don't recall. I believe it did. Okay. I believe one. So to Hixel Space's commentary here, I think once you've initiated contact, it ignites a shame factor in some part. Whether that shame factor turns into aggression towards you, but there is like a, hey, you have pointed out a flaw of mine in public, and therefore I am going to either accelerate this or escalate this, or I'm going to, acknowledge what's happening.
Hexel, I have so many thoughts on this, and I'm sorry if we're going to, and it's so funny. I have so many thoughts on this, and I don't remember that happening. But you know why I think I don't is because I do it a lot.
Yeah.
So you have to take into account a lot of different factors in what's going on. First and foremost, this is what you do. You make sure Because if someone's talking and being rude or on their phone, they either don't care about you or they are not perceptive. So you have every bit of ability and or time to turn and look at the person, not doing anything yet, just figuring out what type of person this is. Is it a group of teenagers?
Are they bigger than you?
Is it an 80-year-old person?
Yeah.
Is it a person who could break you in half?
Yeah.
Because all of those factors play into how to deal with it.
Yeah.
The next thing you need to do is look around and clock and see if other people in the theater are also annoyed. If it's at a more empty theater or you're the only one, that does adjust how you interact with this human being.
Can you get the crowd support?
Well, that's the thing. Oftentimes there will be people already upset about it with you. And if you can clock those people, they will 9 times out of 10, anytime I've seen that, they chime in because it just takes one person sort of doing it.
Yeah.
Once you've done all those factors, the ability of the style of what you do can range anywhere from shocking to incredibly polite. And I think one tact I've done, because I feel like if they're, I hate to say it like this, but if you think you could take them in a street fight or there's tons of people around you, being the firm and polite, you always be polite.
Yeah.
Because people often don't know what to do with polite when they're being rude. It's kind of unnerving. That's pretty much easy in how Shahir sort of described what goes on, because 9 times out of 10 people will come to your aid and more people paid to see the movie than listen to the teenagers talking. But let's say you're a little bit outnumbered and it's someone that looks a little bit physically
intimidating.
Intimidating. What I've done is just turn around and politely, almost lean on the chair behind me if they're behind me and just stare at them like you're listening. Eventually they will be like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. Did you not want me to? I was listening. What's happened? Wait, go back to the part about X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, I'm not talking to you. And then you're like, well then, sorry, because I could only tune in on you. Could you please just keep it down a little bit or whatever? Because I'm trying to watch the movie. Because that sort of short circuits it because they can't admit that they're not being loud because I could hear them. They also can't admit that I shouldn't be listening to them because that would mean what they're saying isn't actually important. There's a whole bunch of weird mental nonsense and stuff that goes on there. This is, of course, assuming that the person is not insane. I have done it, and the person is probably legitimately has some mental health issues, in which case the only real thing to do is either move your seat or, as I've had to do once or twice in New York City, get a very underpaid usher to try to deal with the problem.
Right.
But oftentimes that's also, you also don't want to exacerbate someone that's having an actual episode of something. So that's my shorthand advice for how to deal with people talking at the movies. The phone is another interesting one too. If they light up the phone, you just go and look at their phone.
Okay.
People do not like it when you look at their phones, and they will get really they'll put it away without you even saying something.
Right.
It's crazy how much we are all glued to our phones. But the second someone is over your shoulder looking at the inane bullshit that we all scroll through, people get really self-conscious.
The only thing I would suggest there is that you're taking the difference between the Pacific Rim approach, which you did before.
Yep.
That I'm mentioning was that there was a very direct approach, and it was polite, and it was respectful, and it was like, hey, I am having a thing here and you are interfering with my thing.
That's for 80% of the time, because that's for when the person doesn't look like they're going to destroy you or get really mad or something. You have to sort of judge the time. That's 75%.
Because the other thing you're describing here is sort of confrontational, and it leads to a confrontation. And to me it sounds a little snarky, I guess.
You have to, the way I found it, and you're right, it is. The way I found it is if you're in a situation where you just know that the polite way isn't going to work, you have to be a little snarky or do a little bit of a mind game. Again, it's never rude. The only rude thing you're not yelling at them. You're not being turn that fucking thing off. You are doing a different kind of rude that displays to them what their rudeness is in a way that is non-confrontational. Anyway, it's all different. But yeah, be safe out there. The movies are the movies are a wild place.
Yep, they certainly are. I would just sort of add to this. I have had 2 physical confrontations in New York City in the last couple of weeks. Matt, you were actually outside. Do you remember this?
I do.
Like one of them involved the police coming, and Matt actually happened to be walking his dog as this was happening, and I was like, oh boy, if I got a story to tell. I don't actually think we've actually.
We can offline about it because I don't actually know what happened.
But suffice to say, I have actually been disappointed in myself in both of these scenarios. Actually, in one of these scenarios, which is that I think I escalated a situation. Like I didn't initiate the interaction; someone initiated against me, and I escalated it because it was kind of like what you're describing, which is that I was standing in someone's way. And rather than just ask me to move, I didn't see that person there. They escalated it into a snarky thing and like sort of physically, verbally abused me.
Yeah.
And I verbally abused back. And then it escalated a couple of times. And eventually we got into like a New York style, screaming match in front of each other. And at which point I realized, oh, this is a bad look, regardless of whether I'm in the right or wrong here. And also, I don't know what this person is capable of, and I don't know, what's going to happen in this situation. But it did almost come to kind of like, a thing. And I was like, I need to step away from this at this situation right now. So I'm just saying, again,
I want to make it very clear, and maybe it wasn't if we're talking about this sort of stuff. It's never getting in anyone's face. That's never going to work. That's only going to exacerbate what you do again, or what I do in those situations where a polite thing does not work is you find ways in essentially sideways confrontation, not direct confrontation.
The United States is an oddly different place to have this conversation than it is in most other places in the world. And so, Hixel, to you, stay safe, as we've mentioned, and but also advocate for yourself. You've paid money to see a movie. You are there for the movie, not for this other person's conversation. That other person's conversation, what have you, is impeding upon your ability to enjoy the movie. If you feel like you can intervene in a way that is like, within your comfort zone, then certainly do. Otherwise, as Matt mentioned, as like places like the Alamo Drafthouse kind of makes it a point of, there are people within the theater that can help you with this. I've often found that like there's a little bit of like you have to time it. Like there's a little bit of like if somebody's talking, it might last like a minute or two, and then they will stop. Or if it's consistent, then that's when you kind of need to create an intervention of some kind.
It really is about situational awareness and reading your surroundings and making calls about what is going on and who is available in the vicinity that will help or hinder you. Also, I'll end the story with this. One of the most wild times, which is actually stuff that I've never really had to deal with. Because, as you know, Shahir, I am a big advocate for assigned seating.
Yeah.
I will, because wherever I'm sitting, I've sat in the wrong seat, noticed I've sat in the wrong seat, been like, oh, sorry, and moved, right? Yeah. Like, that's pretty easy. But I've been in theaters where they've had to restart the movie because someone was in the wrong seat and would not move. Oh, wow. And it was a screaming match between two ushers and two groups for 15 minutes and the entire theater yelling at those people.
Yeah.
It was wild. And they restarted, they literally restarted the movie.
Oh, wow. I've never had that experience before, but at any rate,
and they applauded when the person finally left.
Yeah, I think you've talked about that one on the podcast. At any rate, enjoy your movie-going experiences. We hope that, Wicked is slightly different, which is that if there are people singing and dancing in that theater, I wouldn't be as mad because, again, situationally, that seems to be appropriate for the movie. But let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, and if you have any thoughts on Wicked or how you deal with specifically people that are being disruptive in the theater or literally anything, you could do it like Hexel did and give us a YouTube comment, perhaps on this video, or you could email us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com to tell us all about how good for our Wicked takes are.
Yeah.
Wicked,
part
two.
Yeah.
The Internet Movie Database says is, quote, Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her relationship with Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, the second of a two-part feature film adaptation of the Broadway musical. That is almost a broken sentence in there.
Wait, is she the future Wicked Witch of the West? She's already the by the time this movie begins.
I am just reading what our good friend, the singular human being.
I'm not asking IMDb. I'm asking you.
Oh yeah, this is wrong. I mean, this is like a 2 out of 10. I'd say for a description on this page.
But I'm asking you in this movie, because we walked in just as the title came up because we were running a little late. Elphaba is the Wicked Witch of the West.
So actually, it all depends on Shahir. It all depends on your perception of yourself. Because actually, I would say that for about half of this movie, Elphaba does not see herself as the Wicked Witch of the West.
No, she doesn't see herself, but
she is labeled
she is the
Wicked Witch of the West. But then how are you the thing that people label you? I don't know.
Regardless, I'm saying in the movie, she
becomes the Wicked Witch of the West.
But she is at the beginning of the movie.
No. Okay. So follow me.
Yeah.
All the people of Oz have labeled her due to propaganda, the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
She's sort of trying and failing, it seems like, to get out from under that label. She doesn't see herself as the Wicked Witch of the West until about 2/3 through the movie. Spoilers for Wicked for Good. And then she's like, you know what? Fine. Fuck these people. And then at that point, I would essentially say they want a Wicked Witch, fine, they'll have her. That's when she becomes the Wicked Witch of the West, because she has fully taken on the mantle. She's
this is actually an interesting question, because I having watched the film, and we're going to talk about the story in bigger context. So hopefully this is not a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen Wicked for Good. But she's never the Wicked Witch of the West. She is Elphaba, and she plays a role. And even in the direst moments, that role is a performance for the basis of her escaping her situation, right? Like, I don't think she ever sees herself as an evil character.
No, I think she becomes vengeful and therefore fulfills I use this term lightly, like the preconceived notion. She starts, for regardless of the reason, starts acting like the Wicked Witch, and therefore you could say, like, well, now she's the Wicked.
But not but like acting as though she is the Wicked Witch. She doesn't do anything that is like, I'm harming people, or she doesn't hurt anyone.
No, but she does kidnap Dorothy and does a bunch of stuff. Like, she does all the things in the original movie.
Right.
So, like, again, I think it's two sides of the argument coin. Who is a person? Is it the perception of how people see you? Is it how you adjust your behavior based on how people perceive you, or what is internally in your heart? Okay. I would say that at a certain
She's
point,
never internally in her heart the Wicked Witch.
I think, weirdly, there's moments in this where she does just say fuck it, and even though she's doing it for a show, like, you see some, and rightfully so. This is not blaming the character of Elphaba. She's just been put through the ringer for fucking 4 hours, and you know what? I would snap. Yeah. And again, she doesn't do anything. She doesn't like hurt Ozians or anything like that. She kidnaps Dorothy and threatens a dog.
But to get her ruby slippers back.
But again, I would say that she starts doing the things that the propaganda is sort of hinting at. Anyway,
as we've been having this conversation, I realize we sound like those two guys on TikTok or Instagram. It was like, you're going to tell me the Wicked Witch, she wasn't a princess, bro? She came down in a bubble. Yeah. Grow up.
That's Glinda. That's the good witch. But I do like that. Yeah, well, no, I mean, what good would a movie about Wicked for Good be reviewing that we wouldn't be going down semantical rabbit holes? Like?
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps holes in the middle of the yellow brick road that go to a magic desert? What the fuck?
What? Oh yeah, I was.
It's during one of the 2 new songs.
Yeah, it kind of felt like, as far as the Wizard of Oz, the Frank L. Baum story mythology goes, I have the one that impacted me the most was Return to Oz, the Walter Murch film, which is
fucking fucked up movie, man.
Yeah, there's some nightmare fuel in that movie. And that is the one that has really stayed with me the most. I didn't grow up on the Wizard of Oz per se. I have seen it since. And also, by the way, Izzy from BK Rewind has just released an interesting video essay this week about her experience watching the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere in Las Vegas,
and what it means for air quotes film preservation and versus like just for showmanship and all this other stuff. It is an exquisite video. I was watching it in Philly while I was doing work one morning.
Oh, cool.
And I stopped at about 10 minutes in. It's about an hour long. And I texted her. I'm like, this is my favorite video you've done in a very long time. It's excellent. She goes there. Izzy and I have talked a little bit about this, but like I'm an advocate for Izzy doing more sort of like woman on the street kind of stuff because she's so fucking good at it. Please check that out if you have not already, because it is a phenomenal YouTube video on the Be Kind Rewind channel.
Yeah. So I've not grown up with the mythology of this all, but I believe perhaps that intermediary zone was mentioned in Return to Oz from memory. There was like an intermediary zone, which is where Elphaba and Fiore end up at the end of this film. Again, spoilers for the film. We've gone a long way through this podcast without actually talking about how we feel about the movie. I'll jump in first here, actually, just to say, because I'm curious about how we can kind of resolve some of the issues that I have with the movie. Which is that I'm not an enormous fan. I wasn't a fan of the first one per se, but I want to be very respectful of the fact that the person sitting next to me in the theater was clearly loving the film because they love the musical theater, the Broadway version of the show, and they loved the songs. They were enchanted whenever Ariana Grande did something as Glinda, and a song came on that they liked. They loved the sort of the kind of drama of the whole thing. So I want to be very respectful to say that this is not quite my tempo and it's not quite for me, and I'm very aware of that. And so I want to divorce that from what I actually thought about it as a movie in general. And I was thinking about like a couple of the other examples that we've discussed on this podcast, for example, Dune 1 and Dune 2, in terms of the way that is like bifurcated a story in two and what that happens to the conclusion. I sort of always remember my son's reaction to that, which is that he absolutely loved Dune 1 and then really wanted to see Dune 2 and then was kind of disappointed by the end of Dune 2 and was kind of like, I don't, like now that I've seen the whole thing put together, I don't really love it. So I'm kind of like, I'm trying to, put this in context of like, this is not quite for me, but I'm trying to identify what, who does like this. And in fact, a lot of people do like this. And as a movie going experience, I have that as a barrier to entry. And then the second part I have as a barrier to entry is that I'm not a big fan of musicals in general.
Sure.
For me, musicals tend to, and this is personally, feel like the movie stops every few minutes when the song begins, and the song never really continues the narrative as far as I'm concerned. It's sort of like it sort of somewhat deepens the narrative, but there are a couple I liked. I really liked the stage version of Hamilton, and being the misery guts that I am, I love Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark, which kind of identifies what the issues of musicals are and then tries to like navigate through it. So Wicked is classical musical theater in sort of every sense of the word. I found myself, and it comes back to that question I asked you right at the beginning, was like, what was Elphaba the Wicked Witch of the West already at the beginning of this film? Because I was like having just a difficult time orientating myself within this movie to be like, what does everybody want here? Like what is going on and who wants what and why do they want this? And like, and how does this world work? And I was like, I know fundamentally, to not just to enjoy this film, but to kind of like be on the sort of ride of this movie, you have to kind of let that go. Like I have to kind of like just go, this is there's a certain portion of this movie that requires a clear understanding of what the events of the Wizard of Oz are. And this movie is not going to explain those events to you. And they are talking about one of the most celebrated pieces of film history and celebrated books on the planet. So I understand that that's the case. But I did, even within like just kind of accepting that was the case, find myself going, I don't know what this person wants in this scenario, or what the stakes are for this person at this moment, or why this person is doing this. And like, what does the wizard want? And what does Miss Merrill, played by Michelle Yeoh, want in this scenario? And like, what is the what is the world changing stakes that Elphaba introduces by being the Wicked Witch? Like, what is she threatening to reveal? Like, because I think, and this is how I can sort of parse it, is that her beef, and I think, the beef of Dorothy and many other characters, is the wizard is actually a huckster and a fraudster, and he doesn't actually have magic or anything like that. He's kind of like created this sort of sense of order to this world based off of propaganda in many ways. And she is upset about that and wants to reveal that. However, this is a world where magic exists. And this is also a world where like the wizard is incredibly powerful. And and I was like uncertain as to like what was going to happen.
They lock Jeff Goldblum in a soundstage and they do not let him out.
Yeah. I quite liked his musical number.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. I think we come to this movie with an interesting perspective. At least I hope so, if you've gotten this far in the podcast, because we are not traditionally musical people. We both hadn't really seen the musical, I believe, right? You never saw the Broadway show.
No.
And so this was my like getting to see what happens moment. And if you remember, I actually very much liked the first Wicked film. I think that movie, even though it is very long, it didn't feel long for me. And its structure like actively told me a complete story in a appropriate way and pacing for a movie going experience. This movie, despite a 2-hour plus long runtime, feels like it speed runs, which is so crazy because I feel like there was 35 minutes of longing stares that could have been cut out and maybe a little more context put in if we wanted to keep the runtime that big. I didn't really enjoy this movie. I was quite disappointed with it. In fact, it didn't even feel like a B-side. It felt like all it's funny to use the term songs, but I'll just say like scenes or songs or pieces that weren't good enough to go on the main album. Like not even a B-side where you're just like, oh, we'll put them here because that's where the album will sell. Like this one comes out a year later and you're like, okay. I completely agree with the take of like, why is everyone doing this? And this movie, way more than the first one, it felt a lot like characters changed their motivations because the script needed them to change their motivations, not something happened in the world to cause their motivation to change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, so explain, because the thing I think I had trouble with was what were their motivations?
Well, so like Nessa Rose, the who becomes the mayor of Munchkinland, but then all of a sudden, like, essentially kidnaps Bog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden and this is going to be spoilers for everything. And I had an idea where all the other characters come from, but I didn't have it confirmed because, again, I've never seen the play.
Yeah.
When he does his turn to become the Tin Man, he kind of, as the Tin Man, and again, the Tin Man in the movie, in the original film is not like this, becomes like a fucking psycho.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no character felt like they were any character that makes a major change in this movie. It feels like the major change comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's so much context and interesting things going on where it's not as if you couldn't make that happen if you spent the time doing it. But instead, we stay on long shots of people looking out windows so long that there's no time to give maybe the minor characters or the B-tier characters like time to have their twists or character growths or changes actually make any sense.
Yeah.
I found that
particular her character's change. There's a part of this film does resonate in terms of like the idea of governance through fear, right? And propaganda. That part actually did resonate.
The concepts that Wicked is trying to hit, and that is, what is essentially outside of the friendship portions of it, about propaganda and the state of the world that we're in now. Again, sort of the animals in this film representing a whole bunch of different things, but like being literally silenced. They can't speak anymore because of X, Y, and Z magical reason.
Yeah.
And then them all having to leave. And then someone like Elphaba being like, no, you should stay and fight, and not being able to convince them of it. Also, side note, God, the fucking flying monkeys, which I thought were going to like have a good turnout, because the entire time I was like, why does Elphaba have the flying monkeys in the original? Right? Because
she creates them through a spell.
She creates them accidentally in a torturous way in the first one, but then the wizard uses them as his personal hunting force to find her.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Fiyero, who is in charge of is the captain of the guard now, despite, I believe, not having any sort of military type training or having any aspirations of that in the first film, maybe I'm forgetting, also can just command the monkeys. And then due to one line, he says, like, go listen to her now. All the monkeys who, again, truly hate Elphaba for her turning them into these monsters is like, yeah, she's the boss now. And I'm like, again, it's not that I don't think a turn could be done that is fulfilling or interesting. It's just that the movie feels like it's not interested in doing that. It just has to hit all these points while also adding 2 new songs, while also just letting us linger on these scenes, which again, another part of the first film that I really, really, really loved was, even though it was set in a fantastical world, much like the original Wizard of Oz, there was a lot of practical sets.
Yeah.
Places felt real and like you could be in them, even though it was wondrous. Here, this felt like 9 times out of 10, everyone is just on a green screen. There is no grand library for a dance number. There is no ballroom. There is no like courtyard of shiz. Yeah. Like it just all feels like it's not a real place anymore. And I think one of the
very shizzy.
Yeah. I feel like one of the reasons the original Wizard of Oz really does work is, and Izzy talks about this in her video, so I'm sorry if I'm sort of taking a bit of that from her, but it made me really think about this, was when they made The Wizard of Oz, they obviously were limited by the time and whatever, but she was talking about specifically how in the Sphere experience, they have to do like a bunch of plate extensions to see Oz in the giant wide range that the Vegas Sphere offers. And what they do is they're using AI and a bunch of other things to show you like mountains and trees and clouds. All of those things are photorealistic because the models used to build that are essentially made so how an AI model tends to work is it tries to find the most averaged thing, get rid of variance, because that's how you get sort of a clear image of what a tree looks like, right? But that's not what trees and mountains and clouds looked like in Oz. They spent, days, probably weeks, painting elaborate backdrops on vellum and different materials to make the mountains and rolling hills and the cornfields, and the trees never looked like the trees that like an AI would dream up today. And specifically at the Sphere, they went for a realistic approach, not what Oz looked like. So in this movie, it was interesting that it never like, so my point was basically like in the original film, even though you're looking at matte paintings and you're looking at prosthetic trees that are dropping apples and all that stuff, the art direction of the entire film made it all feel like still a lived-in space, like it all made sense. Here, in Wicked for Good, you don't get that. It feels, for being as big and grand as it is, kind of small, because unlike the first movie, very rarely are they in real spaces. And it just felt kind of, it tried to be sprawling and it never felt sprawling. I also, there's a weird Marvelification of combat in this movie, but like it shouldn't be portrayed like this. Like I couldn't believe, like at first I was like, when the movie starts and Elphaba's flying around like fucking with the yellow brick road being built, I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. But then she like lands and has a fight scene. And I'm like, I don't think that's needed. Like there's no point. There's a part where her and Glinda physically fight.
Yeah.
It's laughable. Like maybe that kind of choreography.
I liked that fight because it was like clearly, it was kind of like it felt like the Indiana Jones fight in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he pulls out the gun. It's like we don't, we have no equipment here to deal with this.
I will say this: I think it was planned, shot, and performed poorly. I don't have a problem that there was a fight. I think this movie was trying to do things that the people behind this movie, it might not be their like best thing they're at. I mean, again, you know what I think they're good at? Fucking musicals and songs and spectacle.
Right.
But stage combat, not really the thing. I felt like this movie, despite me really wanting to root for it and like sort of stay on it, I just wasn't. I rode that line of like never being like, God, I want to leave, but also I just wasn't interested. Yeah. Like the first movie really excited me and got me super pumped for this fanfic of The Wizard of Oz. Like I love it when a world is expanded and there's a ton of interesting things going on. It felt like this movie was so obsessed with, but the Scarecrow is this, or this person is that, or this is this. like it didn't take the time to actually get you there. It just sort of threw it in front of your face. It was like, yep, this is this now because we have to. And you're like,
so it was interesting because after I watched the first one, I kind of went and looked at the actual narrative and you know, like where those characters come from. And I remember you were like saying, oh, I know how we're going to get from this character to Wizard of Oz. And I was like, oh, there's actually quite a lot in between what happens in terms of like how we get there. But I agree with you, which is that in this film, it is kind of like, you know, the Tin Man becomes the Tin Man because of sort of one interaction that doesn't quite make sense, you know, emotionally as well. Or it sort of does, but gets there very quickly by it speed runs the sort of interaction.
Everything makes enough narrative sense, but there's not enough emotional sense or time to get there. And that everything felt even though the movie feels long, movie feels rushed, which is a weird balance.
For a 4-hour story, it kind of feels rushed. And again, I think it's there's a couple of factors here. One is a wildly successful Broadway musical that is beloved. It is riffing on a wildly successful and beloved piece of IP at the core of it. You know, the book. It's weird to say I'm referring to the book as IP, but you know that spawned a movie, that spawned a sequel, that you know like has a sort of beloved world on us. We all know the phrase, "We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto." So you know, like these are massive, or you know, massively important pieces of pop culture. Yet the film kind of feels like it's a tapestry of those things, you know, like someone drew a poster for those things as opposed to like actually really investing in the world in a way that kind of like makes it meaningful and fleshed out and emotionally resonant. Because I'll be honest with you, towards the end of this film, I was just like, I am not tracking what is going on in this world in terms of who wants what, other than Elphaba loves Fiore, Fiore loves Elphaba, and they want to be together. And
have sweet cardigan sex.
Yeah. Because they do have some. She rocks a pretty mean sweater in the middle of this movie. When the moment where they're about to like make sweet love for the first time, she puts on this cardigan. I was like, oh, honey, you are like you're at like 1 year into the relationship, and I'm like, is he there with you right now? Like it seems like this might be first date sex, and I'm not too sure what's going to happen. I don't know what happens if you rock a cardigan on first date sex. I don't know. You know, like it works for her,
I guess. I mean, she floats him to the bed, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you got going for. You know, so you can really roll with that. I also found I did think Ariana Grande as Glinda worked this role in a much more confident way than she did in the first film.
Really?
I liked her in the first film, but I found like, I think she's going to need, or she needs to do a few more of these to kind of like really, you know, fall into that role. And she was there on this particular one. I think, you know, for me, the real shame of it is I love Cynthia Erivo. Go back and listen to our Widows episode where I like buy all in on Cynthia Erivo and like start my Cynthia Erivo for Batman campaign. Yep. But in this one, I think there's just like a sense of like one-notedness to the character, which I was just like, that's it. That's what you're doing. And in every interaction, that's what it's going to be.
I feel like this is also just the second half of the musical and or the script's problem. Like they're already fleshed out characters at this point. They grow the entire first movie to get there. So I think both Cynthia and Ariana don't have like a ton to do outside of sing and move from plot point A to B to C.
I still don't understand Michelle Yeoh's character.
Oh, Madam Morrible.
Yeah, I don't understand what it is she wants.
She wanted to use Elphaba to because she's a stronger witch than her, to use the Grimoire, which is the book, to basically help the wizard seem more wizardy and completely take over Oz from everything, even though he kind of already has.
And why does she want that? Why does she need the wizard to do that?
The wizard has been the only successful sort of propaganda machine, so she wants to basically have her and the wizard rule from the shadows. And you know what I don't remember, and maybe this is in the first movie, why they don't like the animals?
Yeah, I think that was the big thing I talked about in the first movie, was that the big world-changing event is that animals that could once formerly speak can now not speak. which is great because they don't need to pay Peter Dinklage to come in and do the voiceover in this film. Well, I think Coleman Domingo is one of the voices.
Coleman Domingo is the Cowardly Lion.
Oh, is he? Yeah. So, is Peter Dinklage actually credited in this film? I don't
see him, but maybe.
Yeah. But the big world-changing event is that the animals are not able to speak anymore. And I'm still, that was like my thing in the first movie was like, oh, this seems like the big event that is happening. Why is this happening? How is the world changing because of this? Like, how do we understand it? And it seems like very brushed aside in that movie. And in this film, it's kind of happened. So Peter Dinklage's character is now, a goat.
He was always a goat, but he can't talk.
Yeah, speaking goat. And I'm not sure what's happened or how it's happened or why it's happened. And like there's a lot of that in this movie where I'm like, I'm very much prefacing this with people who might be like, slamming their speakers against the wall right now, going, "Just enjoy the Wizard of Oz." But I am like genuinely like going, I don't understand I don't understand why this world is going through this.
I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I cannot relate to the people that would be upset with us with these criticisms of this movie, because this whole team that made this movie, in my opinion, already made a masterpiece, and that is the first Wicked. I really like the first Wicked. Mm-hmm. I think the stakes and what is happening and all that stuff now because it's only a first half, you can leave things hanging, which they do. But it still functions from a narrative perspective. The structure of the movie makes sense. The characters' arcs and the reasons why they're doing things feels like actual people and not just plot A, plot B, plot C. This team has already done the very successful, in my eyes, version of this movie.
Yeah.
And here they didn't. And look, some of that is the source material. But if you're adapting source material, you kind of have to adapt source material.
Yeah.
You can't just throw it up. And I know they did 2 new songs and they changed some things from the plot and like whatever. But from this movie feels like I want to, at some point when I have a lot of time, who knows when that will be, actually watch these back to back.
Right.
I think the second one will feel so different, like starkly so. Like, it's been a year since I've seen the first Wicked.
Yeah.
I think this one will feel so different and both too long and rushed that it will be a jarring experience. That's my guess.
Right.
Actually, email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com if you are a fan of these 2 films, and like maybe your movie theater did a watch Wicked 1 before Wicked 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or if you watch them in quick succession, because I'd really like to know if my hunch is correct.
Right.
This movie does not feel to me like the last movie, even though it has all of the same characters and the continuation of the story. The thing that I was shocked and felt like it was an actually special and visceral and actually moving experience of the first one is just not here in this one.
I mean, admittedly, I was not, agree to disagree about the first one, which I was not.
Yeah, which is totally fine.
Yeah, which is not a huge fan of. But I do agree with the point that there are at least 2 show-stopping numbers in the first one.
Yep.
Like at least 2 of them that are probably 3 if you count Popular. I was thinking Popular, the one in the library, and Learn to Fly, or the Elphaba flying song at the end.
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, people slamming
Learning to fly.
That's what it is, right?
Learning to fly, but I ain't got wings. That's the flying song, right?
That's the flying
Defying
song.
Gravity, Shahir.
That's the one.
Monster. You're the Wicked Witch of Astoria.
Wicked Witch is the podcast. Those are at least 3 show-stopping tunes.
Yeah.
This does not have any of them. Does that? I mean,
There's reprieves, whatever, when they call back a song or a tune.
I liked, so the part that did resonate with me, the part that actually resonated with me was this idea of using both the Munchkins and the animals as scapegoats, literally, for a power grab. And it's hard to say that is not resonating in the ether right now in terms of our political system that is happening in the world, or the political events that are happening in the world right now. But this idea that you needed a travel permit to get on the train really has a sort of political subsonic resonance in it, in terms of our world, even regardless of when this film was made. It does feel absolutely relevant. And then secondly, the wonderful song with the wizard.
Yep, it's tweaked so Ariana has stuff to do in it.
Yeah. Which I thought was weird as well, because she was taking him to. It's the musical thing. This is a good example of like where I need to shut up. But like, because I was like, why is Ariana singing in this? She doesn't know what's happening. And I was like, that's a music. And then there was another part of my brain that was going, that's a musical, dummy. That's what happens in musicals.
Sure. But like, I don't know. Like, I think to your point, film one has 3 showstoppers.
Yeah.
This one has no showstoppers.
My point is that I quite enjoyed the idea that was being put forward in Wonderful, this idea that people will believe what they want to believe. And the wizard says this thing, which is like, even once you've shown them a truth that amplifies something that they kind of formally believed, no matter if you reveal the truth after the fact, it doesn't matter. They will believe what they want to believe from that point forward, regardless of, like you showing the truth. I mean, he's basically trying to say to Elphaba, if you pull back the curtain on this whole thing. I think the phrase pull back the curtain comes from The Wizard of Oz, by the way.
Yeah. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. If you pull back the curtain on this whole thing, it doesn't matter, because we have already given people something to believe in. And once they believe it, it doesn't matter what you do. And there's an article in the New York Times recently that was yesterday about a doctor going to an anti-vax conference. And basically that doctor comes to the same conclusion, which is that once these people have kind of found a group to identify themselves with in terms of like their beliefs about vaccines and what have you, it is an incredibly difficult task, even if you give them information that proves them otherwise, to kind of get them to change their minds about it. And that's what, so when I listened to Wonderful, and that's essentially what the wizard is saying, I was like, oh, this is actually really astute writing here. This is very, very sharp, very, very smart. I don't know if the film actually uses that as a topic other than that in that song.
The way this movie is structured and put together, it throws a bunch of interesting topics at you and then actively seems like it's not interested in exploring those topics. It's so strange, because I agree with you. I think and look, there's a whole bunch of interesting you know what movie did this similar plot, but in a fantastical setting where if it was in real life, it would make no sense, but also just fucking understood the assignment and nailed the exact meaning behind the message of what they were trying to get across?
Oh, give me
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, The Dark Knight is kind of, I was gonna, a few minutes ago, I was gonna mention The Dark Knight, but you know why I stopped myself?
Why?
I was like, it is so obnoxious for 2 dudes on a guy-hosted podcast to come in and critique Wicked the musical and say, "But Christopher Nolan did it better in The Dark Knight."
And it's nothing to do with, I don't want to bring up Christopher Nolan.
That's why I stopped myself from bringing it up.
But here's the thing, and this comes from someone who, again, I want to reiterate, truly loved the first film.
Yeah,
it was one of my favorite films of last year, or what I believe it was last year. I was shocked.
Yeah,
I believe I own it on physical. I was shocked how much I really resonated and liked it. Yeah. And I think the reason why I'm okay being a film bro, bringing up The Dark Knight is I'm actually quite upset that this movie, even though this team proved how exquisite they can make a film in this world, this time didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I bring up The Dark Knight because fantastical world, dealing with the surveillance state or propaganda or needing someone to hate in order to move on, etc. Right?
And navigating like a popular piece of IP and
navigating a popular, that's the metatextual stuff of it.
Yeah.
And there,
I just don't want to be like, oh, yeah,
but this
Batman did it better, yo.
Like, and I know I've gone back and forth on Batman Begins being one I like more, which I think The Dark Knight is a better film than Batman Begins, though sometimes I like Batman Begins more. My point is this: it's interesting for all of these things, these rhyming things of a large IP and the same type of topics being discussed. Batman Begins, then into The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is so exquisite and big and sort of gets to do all these in like larger than life things because it's the second movie. In Wicked and Wicked for Good, they do it all first, and then it feels like, well, these are the leftovers. Like I get a real sense in this version of Wicked for Good that it's just like, well, we had to do this one. And that's not what you want.
I would frame it slightly differently, which is that, as Nick, who was on previous show said, the second act has always traditionally been seen.
Adapt it. Make it better. They've proven they can make a great film. Make that great film. You've done it. You can do it again.
Is Wicked a Universal picture, by the way?
I don't know.
Because, yeah, it is a Universal Pictures thing, which is the same company that did Dune. It's this Warner Brothers has Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of Twilight as well the other day because of the Breaking Dawn saga, which is that I think there is a clear sort of game plan at the beginning of this. So the way I'd frame it is not we had to do this at the end. It's that the pitch to do Wicked was to do kind of like Lord of the Rings in a way, which is like, we're going to do this film that's going to release on Christmas Day this year, and then this film that's going to release on Christmas Day that year. And
I think that's the exact reason why this doesn't work, is because it was made as a studio decision as opposed to what might be best for the thing. And the reason why I said, it feels like it has to be done because it contractually does. We've seen what happens when they make a movie that it seems like everything works and like there's an energy to it. Here, that's not there. So it has the feeling of just being like, well, we made this choice and now we're going to keep going. As opposed to like, oh man, I'm so excited because in part 2, we can actually make this change that will make it a far more effective story narratively for the cinema because of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't feel like any of those discussions were really had, or if they were, the wrong choices were made.
And again, it's a massive piece of IP that, I think, a different filmmaker may have come in with like the wanting to pull it apart like that. And I can 100% see though, from a studio executive point of view, being like, Wicked, the Broadway musical is like a global phenomenon success. Why would we try to pull it apart for this, ultimately this movie version of it? And
you're thinking of an executive would say, why would we do that? I would say, why haven't we done it 10 years ago?
What do you mean?
All they want to do is make money off this.
No, why would we pull it apart and reframe and recontextualize and change the story?
Because I don't think that the heads up would want to do that. But I think
hypothetical studio.
The hypothetical studio. But I think the directors and the people involved on the ground of making this film, I think would, and the reason I think this is, they did it in the first one. They did an exquisite job adapting and changing slight things. And
what did they change in the first one? Just so I know.
The way that the songs go in the first one, there's a lot more interstitial like talking and scene work. Mm-hmm. And the song starts, stops. The musical that doesn't have, especially in Defying Gravity.
In the first?
No, but the story doesn't change terribly here either.
Because what we're saying is the story needs to change in the second one, right?
I'm saying you rather than in the second one. Mm-hmm. No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, I don't think the story needs to change in the second one. I think how the story is told and where you spend time to tell that story needs to change if you want it to be nearly as emotionally resonant as the first one. It doesn't matter even that the plot itself is slightly less interesting in the second act, or the second half of musicals is always harder or whatever. Like, I think this movie spent too long on long, boring parts and not enough time moving us between the interesting parts to make the characters' choices actually feel like people made them. And it wasn't like, well, A happened and now B happened. Like, I think that where they chose to spend time was misplaced. I think you could have taken this exact story and told it in a far more compelling way.
Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think I am just rubbing up against the idea that like this was anything other than a sort of studio decision to make two movies. Because
that absolutely was.
And we've seen extraordinarily successful versions. Well, financially successful versions of this. I mentioned that I was sort of like, I liked Dune 1 and Dune 2, but like, as a sort of bifurcation of the story, I'm like, I don't know. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2, it's like the same thing, which is like, why are we splitting these movies in two?
Yeah.
Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2. Why are we splitting these movies in two right now? Like, why are we doing this?
Why do we make 3 Hobbit movies?
Why are we making 3 Hobbit movies and spreading this out?
Yeah.
And it's like, the reason is always the same reason, which is that it is financially successful. And how far can you squeeze the thing to like stretch it out?
I'll even say I'm shocked at how, actually this is, I want to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
I'm glad a lot of people are really liking this movie. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, the fanometer is at 94%, which I am.
What's the critic meter?
Oh God, 68.
Right.
But I am shocked.
No, I'm not shocked by that at all.
Ah, man.
Really? No, I'm not shocked by it at all, because I think, like, I'm just thinking about the person who was sitting in the seat next to me, who was like delighted when things that they recognized happened, and there's that sort of like sense of, not nostalgia weapon, but like that sense of like, oh, I am being catered to at this moment.
Maybe that's why this doesn't work for me as much as the first one did, is because I have no tie to this at all. I'm not getting the nostalgia hit from this because it's not nostalgia for me, where I think the first one did an excellent job of like inviting new people in and getting new people excited about this. And then the second one did not deliver on those invitations for me. Perhaps there's a lot of heavy lifting going on about the nostalgia of it. People that have seen this theater show multiple times and just wanted to sort of see how they would adapt that in a sense in this world. Maybe the reason for going, the barrier of entry, all of those things are just different they are.
Yeah. The fun thing that I thought that the sort of the note that the film really hit on was that Glinda and Elphaba were friends at one point. They were like lifelong friends. I think there's a couple of really beautiful moments in this film.
Yes.
I want to highlight those. So again, I think the song Wonderful is a really interesting and profound usage of the idea that propaganda weaponizes people's own beliefs and it's difficult changing it. I think that was actually really, really cool. I really like this idea. I like the way that the film was using the idea of limiting people's movements. Once a society is being built, you can scapegoat people to kind of control them, what have you. And then at the end of the film, Glinda and Elphaba's kind of moment where they separate away from each other and they're split by a wall and crying on either side of it, I actually thought was really, I was like,
it was a great
man,
shot.
I really wish I was in this movie right now, in terms of like, I wish I was like in it, because this moment right here would really be profoundly beautiful. And so I was like, I can see the writing on the wall here. I can see how this is working, but it is just not working for me.
Yep.
And the idea that the film kind of really leans on is that Elphaba and Glinda were lifelong friends. Even, like there is a sort of...
not lifelong, but since college.
But yeah, like they're talking about the fact that their friendship means more. Like she says, you were the only friend I had. And Glinda jokes, oh, but I've had so many friends, as a way of like diffusing the situation. These are people who are like intimately connected to each other. And then, Elphaba kind of like transfers some of that towards Fiore, and I was like, oh, actually the story's more interesting. Fiyero, sorry, I've already been saying that wrong the whole episode. The film is more interesting when it's about Elphaba and Glinda, not Elphaba and Fiyero. And then they would cut to scenes from what I presume was the first movie, but I don't think they were, of the sort of group of them hanging out in a field.
Oh yeah, that wasn't in the first one.
Yeah, and I was like, this didn't happen. And I was like, when did this happen in the first movie? Because the first movie really kind of like jumps from I hate you, popular, we're together, and now we're best friends. And I was like, and this film kind of suggests that there was all this stuff that happened in between that, where these people just kind of like chilled out, hang out, really had intimate moments.
Speed ran.
They whispered, like secrets in each other's ears. And I was like, none of that happened, did it? Like, did any of this happen? And did I actually feel that way about these five people, like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, Elphaba's sister, whose name I'm blanking on right now, Elphaba and Glinda.
Yes, Rose.
Yeah. And I was like, did all of this happen? Did
Bo and Yang's Pavane.
Yeah, did all of this stuff happen? Because I was like, again, I was watching going, if I was really in this movie, maybe these moments would be like, man, wasn't it a time when we all lived together and we were all friendly with each other and all of our differences didn't matter? But I just want to say, I really wasn't in there with this movie, and I was trying my hardest to be. John Chu made one of the best wedding scenes in a movie in Crazy Rich Asians. In this movie, I was like, oh, here comes that wedding scene. Here comes that beautiful, do you remember, have you seen Crazy Rich Asians? The wedding with the water flowing down the hall. And I was like, oh boy, here comes those butterflies floating up as she goes. And I was like, I really want this to work. And I really want this to be the thing. And I was like, but I was like, honestly, in the back of my head going, I have no idea what is happening right now. In terms of like in terms of like, I have no idea what it is anybody wants in this movie and why they want it and how the world will change if they get it.
Yep.
You know, I was just like, and
the
so
stakes could not be unclearer.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know what's going on here, man.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we didn't poo-poo this too much. Again, I really, really love the first one. I don't think it's funny. I don't think this one not being my cup of tea really ruins the other one for me. Thinking about it, about the first Wicked film, I think it's kind of perfect. Just like if you ended on the end of that movie, like I think it would be fine. I don't think other than an experiment like what I talked about watching the back-to-back, I have no desire to like watch this one again, but I would watch the first one, I think, at the drop of a witch's hat.
For me, it kind of like, it reinforces what I didn't like about the first one, and it like kind of makes the whole experience kind of feel like that. And I have no desire to revisit the first one, and I've, and then to watch this as a whole, I kind of don't either. But I did do something this week before we go out, which was I was listening to Ice Cube on my way to work, as I do. And I realized in my genius brain that no one had compiled a smash reel of Wicked and Ice Cube song Wicked together. And so I did that because I have, by the way, I have a job. I have things to do. I have people that are waiting on things for me. But I was like, no, this is in my brain right now and I've got to get it out. So yesterday I edited just like a quick little smash reel of stuff from Wicked, the first movie, alongside Ice Cube's Wicked. Which was a lot of fun to do. One, because I love that song and I thought it was funny. That's just my dumb humor. And then the second was that it actually did get me to revisit the first film in many ways. And I was like, okay, did I like this? Did I like this? And I was like, I don't I was like, was this the thing? And I was like, I have no desire to revisit this other than that. But anyway, that's up on our Instagram, I believe, right now. We can't put it up on YouTube because Ice Cube
made it so globally you can't use it even if you're not monetized.
No, and 100%, like earn the bag.
Yeah.
But it was done with like no intention of monetizing, so you can go check it out on our Instagram page, where you can see that dumb cut that I made.
Nice. Well, this has been the only podcast about the film Wicked for Good. Shahir, when you are not faking a terrible water allergy, where can folks find you?
Ooh, that would be interesting. I think that happens if you have rabies, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can find me being bitten by bats and turning into a man of some kind, perhaps with a cowl and cape, at my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA. Matt, when you are parking the car at Harvey Yard and going out for a wicked pisser, where can people find you?
You can find me parking my bubble mobile over at my website, Extra History and Extra Credits. By the time this comes out, I believe the third part of our Alexander the Great in Egypt series will be out. Also, stay tuned. I don't think it's going to be out by the time this comes out, but we're going to do our Nintendo Patents episode over on Credits. And we're going to have, there's a good short right now out on Extra History called the Weird Days in History, Napoleon Attacked by Rabbits. It's quite fun.
Day of the Lupus?
No. Well, yeah, right. No, it's funny. It actually ties into sort of propaganda. There's a time when, to celebrate the win of a battle, Napoleon wanted to have a rabbit hunt with his friends. So they stocked a bunch of rabbits on the premises. And it turned out that the rabbits weren't wild. They just expected humans to feed them. So they just kind of kept running up to Napoleon. And there's a lot of different takes on what happened. He was either enraged, or he thought it was hilarious, or he just like took some home as pets, or like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then you realize that all the stories about this day that actually happened were told posthumously after his death from various people in his purview, in his circles, to make Napoleon seem one way or another to support their political agenda. Like, it's, you adjust the story of a thing that actually happened to make it be the best possible version for whatever political thing you want to happen, or how you want Napoleon to be remembered.
I'll give you a couple of movie tie-ins for that. One is, it's actually the movie The Night of the Lepus, which is a Attack of the Killer Bunnies, basically movie. And then our movie that we did on this podcast, the Yorgos Lanthimos film, The Favorite, which involves the capturing of rabbits as part of the narrative as well. So good,
all over the place.
Good movie tie-ins for that one. And this is apparently based on a book called, a science fiction book by author Russell Braddon, called The Year of the Angry Rabbit.
Yeah, there you go. So if you wanted to propagandatize The Wizard of Oz, you got it there. If you want these other films about bunnies, you got it there. Go forth, get all the things. Next week, we'll talk to you about a movie.
Yeah, I'm pitching Train Dreams at this point.
Done.
But there's probably lots of other things we could be seeing as well. We have a spreadsheet
We do have a spreadsheet.
We should share the spreadsheet with the people.
We could share the spreadsheet with but what if we hide it on the YouTube page so people go and subscribe to us on YouTube? We know you listen to all the other places and we're very thankful, but we're trying to get that subscriber base up. So please go do that. Also email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.